SoFi stock was up over 20% last week. It's up 40% in the last month and up over 50% in the last 3 months. So SoFi stock is looking bullish. It is moving up and it is setting up for a possible high value trade, which actually you might already be in last week. So in this video, I'm going to talk about SoFi stock, conduct a price analysis, and also talk about some trading rules that you may want to consider if you want to trade and enter this stock. Let's take a look. Now, if you find value in my analysis of SoFi stock today or other stocks on my channel, you may also find value in my email newsletter. If you subscribe, I'll send you professional trading tips to help you make more profits trading stocks. I'll leave a link in the description below. Check it out. So looking on the weekly chart for SoFi stock, we can see that we've got a sea of green over here in the performance metrics. Over the week, month, last 3 months, 6 months, year to date, and over the last 12 months, SoFi is up. So this stock is looking really bullish. And most recently, you can see that last week we had a really big green bar showing the buyers have come in and are buying up this stock. It also looks as if, based on just one trading day yesterday, that the buyers are not slowing down. They're still coming in. But it does look as if after one day, we might have a slower week this week. And based on the price action recently, it does look as if SoFi is bullish and it wants to move higher. Since this price peak here in January 2025 this year, there was a big sell-off of SoFi stock and it fell into this key level here of around about $8.58. And since that time, it has moved up. Buyers have come back in. The price has broken this trend line. It has moved up to create a new peak. It's pulled back 2 times and it's moved up again last week. So it does look bullish. The sellers have had their chance and it looks as if now the buyers are in control and SoFi stock wants to move higher. And looking at the big picture for SoFi stock, we can see that since this significant low back here around about December 2022, SoFi stock has been moving up steadily, trending up. You can see that this peak here was created in January 2023. It did pull back to form a slightly higher base before moving up once again over the next 8 to 10 weeks, creating this peak here around 1170. It did fall back into this low here before trying once again to push back up, but it couldn't really get above this level of 1030 before it was sold off again, and it found support around about $6. Now, after this trough in August 2024, things really took off for SoFi. They really moved up aggressively with the buyers coming in, buying up this stock. And price moved quickly up to this previous peak of around $18.30. And that was a really big move. Now, since that time, it has been sold off. It's pulled back to this level here, around $8.50. And now it's moving up once again, possibly to test this level up here of $28. So potentially from the current price action, you've got between $18 and $28 upside, around about 50 to 60% from the current price action. Now, before I share some possible trading rules to enter this stock, I want to talk about some key price levels. So you can see on screen, I've already marked up SoFi's all-time high, which is around $28. And that was created pretty much almost immediately after listing. You can see here the stock listed for $11 back in December 2020. And it moved up literally in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, about 8 to 9 weeks. It moved up from the original float date and it created the all-time high of $28. It was sold off then and then it moved down. It did move down and then move back up again. And it's created this sort of double top pattern over June 2021 and also November 2021. So that level is around about $25. Underneath that level, we've got the most recent price peak created here in January this year. And price topped out there and found resistance around about $18. So let's mark that up. Underneath that marker, we've got this key level here where SoFi stock fell into in August 2021. And you can also see it did find a bit of support after this price decline here, which was around January this year. So that's around 1360. So I'll mark that one up as well. Now this price level around here also is one of interest. We've got a peak here, June 2023, around 10.20. We've also got a peak here created in December 2023, around $10.40. And also SoFi did break up, got rejected at 11.70 and then got pushed back down again. So I'm going to mark up that level around 10.30. You can see I've already marked up this level of 8.55, which corresponds to this big reversal bar for SoFi, which was formed in the first week of April this year. And that level does look as if SoFi has found support. The selling pressure has exhausted. Buyers have come back in, seeing value at that 8.50 price, and now they're looking to take the price higher. Now zooming in on the weekly chart for SoFi, we can talk about the price action over the last 6 months for this trending stock. We can see since this price surge from August last year, so about 12 months ago now, it did surge up, really attracting the buyers, and it peaked out here at this key level of $18.30. Since that time, it was sold off. It did fall into support, and it looks as if this level of $8.50 is a support level for SoFi. You can see here there's a big green reversal bar during April this year. And since that date, SoFi has moved up. It's broken the trend line, and it looks as if buyers now want to take the price higher. So zooming in a bit closer on SoFi's weekly chart, I want to talk about the price action that has occurred following the trend line break. So you can see straight away, after the reversal bar, price did move up, an inside bar, an up bar. Following the trend line break, there was a bit of selling pressure. So this peak was created here at around about $14.52. So there was some selling pressure here. It did trade up, but it actually closed low for that last week of April. There was an inside bar the next week before SoFi tried once again to move up. And you can see you've got this doji sort of bar here, a bit of indecision. Price opened at around about $14. It ended up closing just below at $13.91. So a bit of indecision here in the market after the trend line break. The week after, it was facing more selling pressure. So it did trade down and closed this week at around $13. After this week, another inside bar, more indecision. Before this first week in June, price did move up. So buyers started to come in, seeing value around $13.20. And that bar for that week did close high. It closed at around $14.20. Again, a little bit of selling pressure the week after. Before 2 weeks ago, we can see that the buyers came back in, buying up the stock, taking it up to around about $15.60. And for that week, it closed at $15.20. And of course, last week was a big week for SoFi. Big green bar, lots of buying, and the price opened at $15. It traded up to around $17.50 before closing high at $17.16. So a really bullish week for SoFi last week. And you can see this week's bar, which obviously is just 1 day at the time of recording, just Monday's trading session. It does look as if the buying is continuing, but after this big week last week, we should expect the buying to slow down, and we might even get a pullback this week after this big increase last week. That's possible. So if you wanted to enter SoFi stock on a short to medium term trade, where could you enter and what rules could you use? You can see on screen I've marked up this orange line here. It corresponds to this price peak here, which is around $14.78. So this is a peak you could use to enter on Dow theory. You could also have entered on this peak back here, this first peak following the trend line break. And that price peak was around $13.47. So essentially what we're saying with this entry rule using Dow theory is that price has found support here around 850. It has traded up. It's broken the trend line and created this peak after the trend line break at this peak here, around about $14.50. And then we did have an inside bar. So price did retrace slightly. There was a little bit of selling pressure, more so indecision, as the price action was inside this previous bar. So you could have waited until price actually broke above this peak here to take an entry. So you could have entered on any day following price breaking above this level. But of course, if you're using rules on the weekly chart, it is better for the close for the week to be completed to enter on confirmation next week. So effectively, you'd be waiting for the price to close for the week above this level. So we can see here, this week here, price did trade above the peak, but it actually closed low below the actual target. The following week, it also closed below the target, and the week after, and the week after that, and the week after that. So it was only this week here, the week commencing 16th of June, you would have got confirmation that the close for the week here was above this level here, and you could have entered during this week based on that rule. And a close for the week above that key target level there would have meant you could have entered the week after on market open on the Monday. And that would have meant you would have entered somewhere around $15, which is the opening price of this week's bar here. That was the start of that bullish week last week. So if you had entered there last Monday, you'd be doing well right now. You would have been up 15% last week. And based on yesterday's trading activity, you'd be around 21% up based on that Dow theory entry. So well done if you did that. Now, another possible rule you could use to enter SoFi, which would have got you in much earlier, would be a counter trend rule. So effectively, you could have entered on the price peak of this bar here, around about 1346. So with this rule, what we're saying is, after this price has traded up to create this first peak, so this first pullback would have created a lower price point. And then you could have entered on the rule where you could have said, okay, once price trades above the high of this inside bar, you could enter. It is higher risk because obviously you have less confirmation, but it does get you in earlier. So potentially you could have entered there 1353 or entered the week after at this level here of $14. Now that rule would have seen you actually, be negative for the week after, but then it did recover and then move up. So both rules are effective. One gets you in earlier with higher risk. So if you had entered at $15 using those rules, what sort of profit is available for this SoFi stock trade? Well, the first obvious price target could be this $18 level of resistance. So that would give you a potential upside of 22%. And of course, if you had entered last week on that rule, this is where you'd be right now. And if you set your stop loss at 15%, corresponding to this price low back here, that trade setup would give you a risk to reward of 1.45, which is acceptable. And the next level of potential target you could aim for is this next price level of $24. So moving our target up to here, this gives you an upside of around 65% and a risk to reward of 4.1, which is excellent. And if SoFi keeps going and it challenges the all-time high of $28, then you've got a potential upside of around 87% over the short to medium term. Overall risk to reward of 5.65, which is excellent. Now, just looking at the daily chart for SoFi stock, it's interesting to note that we have had a lot of green days, a lot of green bars. You can see since this day here, which was obviously the start of last week, we've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've had 6 days in a row of bullish action. So there is a possibility that this week we might get a pullback. I certainly think price might slow down. The buying might slow down and some sellers might take profits, just slowing down that upward price action. We have had 6 green bars, so in theory we are due a couple of red ones, and that would be completely normal as some sellers take profits and price takes a breather as it moves up. So based on this possibility that SoFi might take a breather and pull back, if you're not in it yet, you might want to wait to get a better entry. So potentially if SoFi stock does pull back this week, and perhaps this bar this week, so we've got 1 day so far, this peak here, this bar is 1892. So in theory, if Monday's peak is the peak for the week, that could be an entry marker for entering over the next few weeks. If we get a pullback, if price falls down, potentially it trades back to around 1650, has a breather after these two big bars, and then moves up once again. We just don't know yet. We've got to watch it day to day, watch the weekly price action to see how much the buyers have got, how much the sellers have got, see how those prices are interacting. So overall, SoFi stock is looking bullish. It does look as if it wants to move higher. Now, if you're in the trade already, congratulations, you're probably up around 20% based on Dow theory. And I do think it's got a lot more to give. However, based on last week's price action, it was a big green bar. We know that SoFi can move fast. It's more than capable of adding on green bars like that 3 weeks in a row. So this is possible, but there also might be a pullback. So if you're not in it yet, you might want to wait to see how this unfolds. Or if you're looking longer term, you may want to just enter straight away. Let me know what you think in the comments. Are you bullish on SoFi? Are you in the trade already? How are you doing? Let me know. Thanks for watching.